So the first thing that we will need is to have Python installed on our computer. So go to python.org, click on downloads, select the version 3.11.6 because that's the version I will be using. Click on download, select your operating system, download it and install it. So one important note when you're installing it on Mac, after installation, you will get this window opened. It is very important that you install the certificates and you need to install it as an administrator. So if you're using a current user which is not an administrator, switch to an administrator and run this command. The other option is that you can sudo and install the certificate command if you are not an administrator and you are a sudoer. So this is very important because otherwise you will face some SSL issues when trying to connect to a database. So the next thing is Visual Studio Code. I will be using this IDE. It is a very good one and you can download it for your operating system and install it. The third one is the Oracle SQL Developer. Go search for Oracle SQL Developer on Google. Download the installer for your operating system. In my case, is the Mac operating system, and install it. And lastly, you can download Postman. Go to postman.com and select your desktop application and download it and install it. And that's it. I have now opened Visual Studio Code and I want you to go to extensions and search for Python. You would select the first one, the one from Microsoft, and install it. The next thing we want to do is open a folder. We'll go to Documents, create a new one, FastAPI Oracle, open the folder, and we want to create a virtual environment. So in order to do that, click here or Command Shift P, put greater than, and search for the create environment one. I will select a VNV environment and select the version 3.11.6. You will see that this folder is being created and Python will be installed in this folder and every package we install will be installed in this folder. And this is very convenient because if you have different projects with different package version requirements, this will isolate it and you will be able to run those different projects without any trouble. You can see if I click here, Python has been installed, pip has been installed, activate has been installed, and the libraries will be installed in here. So the next thing we want to do is create a new file and we call it main.py. I will open up a terminal, by the way, with Command J. I will trust the folder and continue. I want this to be activated. You can see I opened up terminal and the VNV virtual environment was not selected. So I will Command Shift P or click in here and select greater than. I will select the interpreter and it resulted in an error. I don't know why. Select interpreter. I will close Visual Studio Code and restart it again. It's the first time that I get this error. There's always a first time. I will open up the folder. We'll do that again. Select the interpreter. Okay, now it has been selected. Let me Command J now. But it was not activated. So the way to activate it is go to source, put venv bin activate. And now if I do Python version, I have my Python version 3.11.6. So that's it. We have created a virtual environment for our project. We will be creating now our first API. And in order to do that, what we need to do is pip install FastAPI. And remember, we are in the venv in here. So every package will be installed here. So this has been installed. I will also install pip install uvicorn. And from FastAPI, import FastAPI. Let me go and do select interpreter. It should be selected. The venv should be selected. I was in the wrong one. Now it detects the FastAPI package. So what I'm going to do is create an instance of my FastAPI. So now I created the application and I will create a path operation. A path operation consists of a path and an operation method. A typical path is when you go to, for example, google.com/foo.bar. This is the path. And operations are get, and operations are get, post, put, delete, and so on. So how do we define a path operation? We do a decorator by using the app in here, selecting what kind of operation we want to do. I'm going to do a get operation and we're going to select the path, and the path will be just a slash. Next, we define the function that will be associated with the path operation. So let's name it get root and let's return something. Response success. Let's save it. Now let's run it with uvicorn. Uvicorn, let's call the main file. It's called main, and the app, it's called app. Hit enter. And we get a server running on our local host. So let's open that. And we get a response success. So our first API works. I'm going to open my Postman and try the API with Postman. So I'm going to create a new collection or HTTP request. I'm going to get to my local host, to my root path, hit send, and we get a 200 response with a response success. I'm going to save this, create a collection, call it FastAPI Oracle, and call the request get root. Now, an interesting feature of FastAPI is that you get some built-in documentation. If you write docs in here, you can see that it has been documented, and I can always use it for documentation purposes, but I can also try it out and get a response. So I click try out, I click execute, I will get the curl, the request URL, the response body, in this case, response success. But I also get another documentation tool called Redoc, and it's a different way of documenting the API. I can actually download the the open API specification and actually import it to Postman or to any open API compatible AP management software. So just as a quick summary, we create an instance of FastAPI. Then we define a path operation decorator. And then we define a path operation function and we return something. And lastly, we run the UVcorn server like that. Next, we're going to create some path operation and a path operation function, also a get request, but I want to get the path parameters. A path parameter is the one, or path variable is the one that I get. For example, if I type google.com, and this is a variable, and this could be a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 7, 4 to 6, whatever. This is a path variable, and I want to get it into my path function. So let's create it. Let's create app get. Let's go to the root. Let's define the path variable. We'll call it ID. The path operation function, I will define it as get path variable. And I will define the variable here. It will be of type integer, and I will return a response based on that path variable. I will say the path variable is, and we'll do it as an f function, ID. And if I save and reload the UVcorn, and now go to my Postman, put a 2 in here, we'll get path variable is 2. If I put the root, I will still have a success. If I go to my Chrome browser, go to Redux, I will have my 2 functions, get root and get path variable. And if I go to my docs, I'll have the get root and the get path variable, which I can test out in here. So I can select an integer and I will get path variable is 2. If I select another variable like 12 and execute, path variable is 12. One important thing is that order matters. FastAPI will look at the first path operation and then at the second one. If it finds a match in the first one, it won't go to the second one. So let me give you an example. If I have a path called /me, and this is of type string, and let me call it text to not be confused with the ID. What happens if I go to /me? If I go to /me, it will say it is not a valid integer. Okay, what happened? I changed the code, I saved, but I did not reload the UVcorn. In order to make it reload when it finds some changes in the code, I will do and select the reload option in here. Now, next time I save something, maybe I say hello me and save it. Look at the bottom of the screen, you will see a reload. So if I send it now, we'll say hello me. But it didn't go into this variable here where it prints the variable of me. And actually this is wrong. It should be text in here. But if I put me too, it will see there is no match with the me because it's me too and not me. Then it would go to the /text and print that variable. So the order actually matters. Let's take a look at query parameters. The typical query parameter is the one which you have some query. This is a variable. This is the content of the variable, and limit equals 10. So those are query parameters, and let's look at how to build some APIs with query parameters. So let's build a path operation. Let's comment this out just for a second. And let's define a function called get query parameters. And let's define a query of type string and an integer, and a limit of type integer. And let's return query parameters. Let's put an f string. Query is query, limit is limit, and save it. Let's do it in the browser. Okay, it says values missing. I'm not defining I'm defining it as a required parameters. So let's put, what was it? Query and limit. So query equals FastAPI and limit equals 10. Now we get query is FastAPI and limit is 10. So what happens if I uncomment this one and do it like that? Hello world. What happens if I go to exactly the same query? It goes and finds the hello world, and that's because, as I mentioned before, the order matters. And in order to avoid this, we can define these as optionals, and being none, we uncomment this one, save, hit enter. Query parameters FastAPI limit is 10. We remove it. Query is none, limit is none. What happens if we want to print hello world? What we do is, if query is not none and limit is not none, then we return this one, else return this one. Save hello world, and we put the query parameters. We get the query parameters here. So how do we receive data through a request body? Let's do that. Let's have a post request, because that's how you should send data in a body. Create a function, get request body. And let's pause here for a second. So the way we get data through a request body is, first we need to define what the request body should look like. And the way we do it is by defining a class that inherits from a Pydantic's base model, from Pydantic, and we need to install it, by the way. So let's go close this, cancel this session, and pip install. I think it's already installed with FastAPI. Let me just check it. From Pydantic, yeah, import base model. So now we create a class. We are gonna call it item that inherits from base model. We're gonna create name, which will be a string, a description, which will be a string or none. So this is optional. Default is none. Price will be a float, and will be defined a tax, which will be a float or none. Default will be none. So now we need to define the request body we're getting in here, and we will get the request body through that item. So what we're going to do is now return basically the item. Let's go to Postman, create a new HTTP request. It will be a post request to the URL. Let's try to send it like that. Let's save it first. Let's name it, I don't know, request body. Let's send it. Error connection, yes, because we did not start it. The UV actually we canceled it. Let's start again. Hit send. Okay, field is missing. We're getting some validation here. So we now need to go to body and create an object with at least the name and a price. So let's put name, my item, and price. Let's send it now, and we get the name, the description as null, price, and a tax of null. If we go to our browser and we go to our docs, we can see that we have a post request now. We can click in here, try it out, and fill out the data as we did before in Postman. So name my item 2 with a description of my description, a price of 12.34, and a tax of 1.00. Execute it, and we get the response. So we are able to get the request body in the way that I just showed you. We define a class, we put the class in here, and we access the item through that variable we define in here.